Welcome to another episode of Operation Evil. We're on episode number 83, and this is Rachel's story, and she is titling it Stalker. So, whenever you are ready, Rachel, do you have any announcements or anything before we get started?
No, I don't believe that I do.
I just have, and I put it on our Facebook, that we are collecting spooky stories for Halloween. So, if you have any that you want to submit and you don't need to put your name, we can keep it anonymous or whatever. I just want to tell a different stories on an episode, but you can send it to our email, operationevilpodcast@gmail.com, or you can send it to our Facebook Messenger. Those are our two best ways to submit anything or talk to us. But yeah, do that, please.
Or Instagram.
Yeah, or Instagram.
I'm gonna start trying to get that active again.
I know. I suck at keeping up on that one.
No, I was trying to get like TikTok going, or not TikTok, Twitter.
Yeah.
But I think maybe the Instagram will work.
You know, there's so many platforms to keep up on. It's hard.
Yeah, and you're the tech person. I am not.
If you say so.
Little inside information here. It took like how long? 20 minutes. Today we had to do Zoom because it's been a long ass week. So we're doing Zoom and like it took me 20 minutes to get set up. So
yeah, I don't know if you guys had a rough week last week, but we sure did. It was in the air, and it is hard to get anything done when you feel that way. And
yeah,
I'm hoping that this week is better for everyone involved. But and it's not that anything tragic happened, so don't get us wrong. It was just a rough week.
stressful.
Yeah, stressful. Yeah. But anyway, go on. The show must go on.
Let's enlighten the mood with talk of stalking.
That's always a way to lighten the mood.
Always. So I don't know if anybody has ever heard of Rebecca Schaefer. She was this upcoming actress in the 80s that she was murdered by her stalker, but she was so much more than that. You know what I mean? Like she just had this future ahead of her, and this psycho took that away from her. And it's so crazy, like literally pun intended, how many Nayoka shaking her head like,
yeah.
There's so many examples and cases of stalking throughout the decades that some people like I've never even heard of, or examples I've never even heard of. Like, of course, pretty much everybody knows about where John Lennon was murdered by his stalker. I remember hearing something about David Letterman was like harassed for years by a woman.
What? David Letterman?
Yeah.
I did not know this.
I think it was like for years and years.
Now it's so much easier to stalk people because like we invite stalkers on our social media. It's like, here, stalk me. Here is a glimpse into everything I like and dislike and the places I'm going and who I'm friends with. And it's like, why do we do that? But we do.
Well, and I forget what year it was, but like, I want to say 2017 or something like that. Google actually did away with some of their apps, like those apps that like, I don't trust my boyfriend, so I'm going to spy on him. Those kind of apps. All right, so I'm just going to talk about a couple of these cases to kind of start this off. In 1989, 36-year-old Ken Orville Gauss from Wisconsin was arrested in Burbank, California, inside the NBC studios lobby for threatening Johnny Carson. He had threatened to blow up the place. They found like a concealed weapon on him. Now, whether it was a knife or gun, I'm not sure, but whatever it was, he had it concealed. And he had been stalking Johnny Carson for like 2 years. And he even found out his address. Remember when they used to do the map of the stars? I wonder if they still do that.
I don't know.
There's no way they can do that.
I mean, do we care about mini stars anymore?
So like and what's weird about a lot of these cases too is that the stalker lives like ways away. It would be like me living in Kentucky going all the way to Texas to stalk Rob. You know what I'm saying?
No, you already do. What do you know?
Yeah, it's already out there. There was another guy that was arrested for threatening Kelly Lang. She was a news anchor for KNBC TV, which that news station worked outside of or inside of NBC studios. So, I mean, there's just so many cases, so many. So the point is, like I said, we're talking about Rebecca Schaefer. She was a up and coming actress in the mid 80s that was murdered by a stalker. A 19-year-old male found her address, went to her apartment, and shot her point blank in the chest. And then she later died at the hospital. So I'm just going to kind of start with like how pretty much like how we got there. Okay.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about the arrest. LA detective David Escato said that he got a phone call from this person that lived in Nashville, Tennessee. Her friend had called her and said, referring to Rebecca Schaefer, if I can't have her, nobody will. So this friend, which was a woman, she calls this detective and she says, I really think you need to look into Robert. And after doing some investigation, like around the apartment where Rebecca lived, after, talking to neighbors and stuff, they saw this same person before the murder and after the murder, like hours, like just hanging around.
Oh, like at the crime scene?
Yeah,
Oh,
like
wow.
so he was there a couple hours before. I think they said like 4 hours before,
Oh.
and then came and then like hung around like later. So let's figure out, or not figure out, but let's talk about Robert, the obsession, and get back to the arrest, like how all that happened. So it started out that Robert saw Rebecca on like in a commercial, and then he saw her and there was a TV show called My Sister Sam, and he sent her like a fan letter. And back in like the 80s, 90s and stuff like that, like you could write a letter to like an NBC studio or whatever, wherever, and then the actor, actress, or whoever. And a lot of musicians did it too. They would send you like an 8x10 photograph with a signature on it. So he received one of those and he would just continue to write her letters and letters and letters. And I mean, it just got worse and worse. Like he would keep newspaper clippings, any kind of photographs, like, the People magazine articles and things like that. I can only imagine that he had a scrapbook of just her. Like it was just dedicated to her. I could only imagine that.
In his head, he
And he
probably
also,
thought he was in a relationship with her. Like, you know,
oh, and that's what I was gonna say because he actually wrote a song about her.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, and that's what it was about, was a fantasy relationship. And he stalked her from like it was like 2 to 3 years.
Mm-mm.
And then yeah, and he got really really mad because she was in this movie and there was a love scene. So that pissed him off and he decided that's like when he went to kill her. So he shows up at her door and he has a like a postcard that like I don't know if he had sent it to her or she sent it to him, but they were discussing the postcard and it was like she was familiar with him because if he sent that many letters, of course that name's going to stick out in your head, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm
Yeah.
sure he was like, my name's Robert, blah blah blah. So she they're talking and stuff, and then she says, shakes his hand, smiles, and says, "Please take care." So he says that he goes to walk away and remembers that he had a CD and another letter for her. When he goes back to the apartment, which he kind of makes it like, you're walking away, you forget, and then you're like, oh, let me go back and do this real quick. No, this was like an hour later. Yeah. So goes back to the apartment. He sees that she's in a robe and he's like, oh, this is wrong time. Like she's about to take a shower. And he says that she acts like annoyed with him and is like, oh, I can't believe you came back. Like, what do you want? Like, kind of like go away kind of attitude. And he shoots her. He thinks that it is just terrible that she is treating a fan that way and shoots her right in the chest. And I guess he flees and the neighbors call the ambulance and all that stuff and they come get her and that's where she took her away and that's where she was pronounced dead at the hospital. He goes back home and the next day, evidently the way that I read it is like he did this, hung around for a little bit and then just decided to go home. So he goes home and the next day he is arrested by Los Angeles police. So it was a good thing that that detective took this woman from Nashville serious and pursued this lead. So there's a reporter and he is called to testify later on to the trial. Okay. It ends up that there's word out there that Robert is in the middle of this interstate running into traffic and supposedly he's naked and the police show up and they arrest him and they find out that of course he's the one that supposedly killed Rebecca Schaefer. So they put him in jail. They put him in the psych ward unit because he threatened, he's threatening to commit suicide and things like that to hurt himself because evidently he was there to try to kill himself. He said that he owed it to Rebecca after what he did to kill himself. He he's in this mental ward. He obtains a lawyer, like a public defender lawyer, and she's trying to to more or less, I guess, like fight for him in a way. So the trial, I'm just going to jump to the trial because there's a lot. That's where I found a lot of the info and then a lot of the details come out is like during the trial.
Okay.
So during this trial, they find out that he, like I said, the thing about the pictures and all this stuff, which I mean, really, this isn't that weird because I've recorded every show, but he recorded every single. But I guess at the time it wasn't like as common. Like the VCRs were a little bit expensive and things, but he had recorded every single episode of Rebecca in the show My Sister Sam. So they found that stuff. And oh, another good, interesting, just little tidbit is that the chief of police that arrested him was Linda Ronstadt's brother.
Who's
You
that?
know
I'm
who
really
Linda
bad with
Ronstadt?
names.
She sings that song. Oh my gosh, what is it called? She's a singer, one of the sappy songs. You light up my life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you light up my life, you give me strength to carry on. That song.
Yeah.
Yeah, her brother arrested him. I just thought that was kind of cool.
That is kind of cool.
So at the trial, he's arrested in like July, okay? The murder happens in July, he's arrested. The trial starts in September. There was a reporter who got called to testify, like I was saying earlier. And he said that, he gets this call to go to this certain area because there's this male that's running in and out of traffic. And like I said, he was naked, but they said later on that that wasn't true. He was fully clothed. But the idea to get the reporter to testify in the trial as a witness came from the lawyer of Robert because they wanted to. It was all about his mental state, right? Like they wanted to show what kind of mental state that Robert was in. They weren't necessarily trying to do the insanity plea, but they wanted to use his mental state as a big factor for the trial because he was facing the death penalty and or life in prison. The trial started like late September and right after the opening statements. And I thought this was interesting too, that the lawyer, like on the DA side, was Marsha Clark, which, if you don't know, was the DA, one of the DAs against OJ Simpson for that trial.
Oh.
So I was like, wow, there's like a lot of no names with this. So the first person that they called, and then I'll go back to the reporter, but the first person that they called to the witness stand was John Egger. He was the chief security guard at Warner Brothers Studio, and he testified that Robert was, and let me add that John used to be a police officer. So now he's a retired police officer working as a security guard. But Robert said that, or I'm sorry, John Egger said that Robert was one of the most lucid and intelligent types of people that he's ever dealt with. He showed up at the studio with this huge teddy bear and flowers. And John was like, look, you're not going to see Rebecca. It's not going to happen. These gifts aren't going to be given to her. You need to leave her alone. The best thing for you to do is just to go back to Arizona, which was where he was from and where he went back to after he murdered Rebecca. And they found out that like there was a total of like 4 visits that he would take by bus to come visit Rebecca. Cause like how, if he didn't have a job too, like where would he get this money to pay for these trips, like from Arizona to California?
It's a good
Did I mention
question.
that he was like, yeah, did I mention that he was like 19 and was a fast food worker who was out of work? A former fast food worker. So with this last occasion where Robert shows up at the studio, John says, you know, like I'll give you a ride back to your hotel. His hotel was in Hollywood. Gives him a ride, you know, he's cordial the whole time. No reason to believe that Robert would be violent.
I just want to say real quick because people probably don't know because we were laughing about the fast food worker thing. We're not laughing about being a fast food worker. It's just we started the podcast and we redid it and we were laughing because Rachel said that he was an unemployed fast food worker and I was like, you can't be both. Is he unemployed or a fast food worker? So that's where that came in. I just wanted to clarify because you weren't there for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, well, I mean, I guess his career at the age of 19 was in the fast food and it just abruptly stopped. So that guy, the security guard, you know, he was there to testify. And then let's go back to the reporter. So the reporter, you know, he said that, so you've got this image of Robert, okay, that the security guard draws for you. Like he's lucid, he's not crazy at all, he's just chill. But according to the reporter, he was drunk or on drugs and he was just a mess like when he saw him. Now, mind you, this was after he had murdered Rebecca and he was in traffic trying to kill himself, you know, walking out in front of a car. And what I loved though about Marsha Clark was she asked him this question. She was like, the way he was acting though, can you also say that that could have been because he hadn't slept for 48 hours? And he said, well, that could be the case too. So I like how, because he was called, the reporter was called for the defense side to try to establish that mental state. And Marsha Clark was like, please, like, you know, it could have been because he was awake for 24 hours, you know?
Yeah.
And the reporter did say, you know, like he was also acting like in an odd manner, like he would bounce his head up and down. It was like he had his head down, but his eyes were up at the same time. I think there's a picture in one of the newspaper articles where it's kind of depicting what he's talking about. And I feel like that, like I've seen that picture before and didn't realize that it was Robert. Like I didn't even know who he was. So I feel like that you, Naoka, when you see that picture, that you'll, and maybe a lot of other people too, will be like, oh my God, that's him? I had no idea. Because it's almost um, like when you see a picture of Richard Ramirez and you're like, look at like that face is like an evil looking face. Like
Yeah.
it's just you, I don't know, you won't forget it. And what was also interesting was that they allowed the reporter to play the videotape of Robert being arrested. And I'm like, that's kind of interesting. And let me just clarify too, like the dates of when this happened. So Rebecca was murdered on July 18th of 1989, and then the trial started in 1991. So I just wanted to clarify that it was a couple years in between when the trial actually started. There was like a big like hoopla, or what do you say? How do you say that word? Is it like hoopla? A big hoopla?
I don't know.
That's it, hoopla. There was a big hoopla even to get the trial to happen. Like, so when Robert was still in Arizona, okay, because remember, he was arrested in Arizona, he was extradited to California and everything was done legally. But the lawyer that Robert had in Arizona was like trying to prevent him from being moved to California, and she wanted to make sure that he had a fair trial. And I was thinking, like, a fair trial? Like, what about Rebecca Schaefer's family? Like, where's their fair trial, you know? That just drives me nuts. So the defense, once it finally, like, okay, like everything's cool, like we know the trial is going to be in California. The lawyer that was in Arizona, she tried to challenge the sheriff's office and the county attorney's office, that they had done something wrong. And the judge was like, no, no, everything was done legally. It is what it is. Like, we're keeping it that way. So just deal with it. Those are my words, not his. And like, oh, and that's what I was going to say too, was that like the trial kept getting delayed because of all the motions. Like, they wanted to, I kind of think it was like a ploy. I mean, he did have mental issues. They later found out that he was bipolar and like manic depressive, but it was just they wanted to have him evaluated by, it's just a classic ploy. I mean, we've had it with other stories that we have discussed on this podcast where one of the lawyers wants to have a mental evaluation by a psychiatrist. It's not maybe what they want to hear, so they go to another one. And then
Yep.
the other side of the other lawyer wants to have one. So that was like it started from the time he was arrested until the trial in 1991. So I just wanted to throw that out there too. And I get it that there's that mental health, sometimes mental issues can have a part in murder. I mean, obviously this did, but I just feel like with this guy, he's never really taken full responsibility for what he did. Because if you read like articles and interviews, and there is a 2020 special that was done, I think like a couple years after he was serving his time, like it just seems like he blames everybody else but himself. Like he'll say like, I'm sorry that it happened, but there's no buts. You know what I'm saying? He said that he still loves her, and this is like a year after the trial, okay? Because ultimately he was sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. He refused to enter a plea agreement because they were just still fighting to try to get these mental evaluations. So the judge was like, on behalf of you, I'm just entering an innocent plea for you. Like you are pleading as innocent. So yeah, he just says that he kind of feels guilty for all the stuff that has happened and that his feelings were uncontrollable. He was a fan of hers and he may have carried it too far. Like, who the
You
heck
think?
said that?
You
That's what I
think?
thought too. Like, you murdered her, but wow. There was a lot of, like, good, like, well, I shouldn't say it that way, but there was some positive things that came out after the fact. There was some legislation that was brought into law for, like, the stalking and things like that, but we'll go into that in just a minute. I wanna talk a little bit about Rebecca, like, who she was. She was actually on a soap opera too.
Which one? Do you know? Was it a big one?
Yeah, I think it was, hold on, where is that? One Life to Live, yeah.
Yeah, it was a big one.
Yeah. So she was born in November 1967. Her family lived in Oregon, and she was the only child of her parents. That about killed me when I read that.
Yeah.
She developed a yeah. She developed a passion for drama at an early age, and she was approached about modeling. And just a couple years after she started out as a teen model, she moved out to New York to pursue her career in entertainment. And her first job was the role on One Life to Live. And then she got a big break on My Sister Sam. She played the sister of the other actor. Her name is Pam, and I cannot think of her last name, but she's been in some random different things. Um, and then like she moved to California in 1986. My Sister Sam was on for about 2 years, and she was also on the cover for 17 magazine in 1987. And she went on to star in several movies, which one of those movies was the one where Robert saw her in a love scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Felt
And
like he was being cheated on, probably.
yeah, like she's yours. It's almost like they talk about these people like they're their property.
I'm looking at a picture of her right now, and oh, she was
She's
cute.
so pretty.
Yeah, very, very pretty. Yeah.
She was supposed to be, when he murdered her, she was working to star in Godfather 3. Well, I shouldn't say star. I don't know exactly what role it was in Godfather 3, but she was going to be in that movie.
Oh, I see a picture of him too.
Yeah, isn't he creepy?
Yeah. Yeah, he really does look like a stalker.
Mm-hmm. He looks evil. And
Yeah,
at
the
this time
eyes, man.
too. Yeah, right? It is. It's the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're piercing. Like, do you even blink?
Right.
After the murder, I was talking about like the laws and stuff. At the time, there wasn't really active laws. It's kind of like how we've talked before too, in comparison with like the missing children laws. Like back in the day, it was like now we know that you have to immediately go out and search, right? You can't wait 24 hours or whatever.
Yep.
So now we know, with the stalking that because it used to be you couldn't do anything until something illegal happened. But now we know that we need to intercept before something illegal or worse happens to prevent people from being murdered. Because ultimately, with a lot of these cases, the attempt or that is what happened. In 1990, California became the first state to pass an anti-stalking bill. And, most of the states have those laws now. And Rebecca's parents, they became active in handgun laws as well, too, because um, it was like a millimeter, a 35 millimeter or something. Like, I guess it was like a small handgun that he was carrying around in a shopping bag. So they worked with legislation to work on laws with guns and things like that. Um, and also, did you know that I don't know if it was that way in Kentucky, but in California, that you used to put your address on DMV records and voter registration?
I don't know.
Well, evidently, the way that he found her address was he hired this private investigator for $250, and he learned about this idea because he had read in a People's Magazine article about this other stalker that found his victim's address on the DMV like database or whatever in the DMV records. That's how he got her address. So he paid this investigator to look for Rebecca's address in that way.
I'm not surprised. I mean, they just didn't have the
Mhm.
privacy then.
Which, I mean, I guess there was computers too, but not like
Not in every household or anything.
right. And it was basically like a computer like just for the database for that work or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, so in 1994, oh my gosh, can't talk. In 1994, California passed the Driver's Privacy Protection Act, which prevented the Department of Motor Vehicles from releasing private addresses. And um, then shortly after that, they passed a bill that made it a choice of whether or not you would want to include your address on your voter registration card.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah. And so today, like I said, just about every state, I think every single state has some sort of version of that law on the books. And I didn't know this either, but because I always kind of knew about the story about Rebecca Schaefer, but she had a boyfriend at the time, Brad Sibberling. And in 2002, he made a film, Moonlight Mile, that was loosely inspired by Rebecca's story. It was written and directed by him. That's really that's really sad.
I'm surprised the stalker didn't go after him.
I mean, I hate to be like there was this article that I'm gonna put to share like in the show notes, so if people want to read it, but it's this detailed article and it was interesting too because it was written in like 19 late 18 late 1989 and it was talking about looking into the mind of how these stalkers how their mind works. So like obviously they don't work the way that most of us do, but the person was talking about how it really all is fantasy and that like if you were to say to someone this was an example that he gave. Like if you were to say to someone, I know Paul Rudd. Okay. Like then and you're like, no, you don't. You don't know Paul. You don't know him, blah blah blah. And then I said to you, yeah, yeah, I do. Call his secretary and he will tell you that she will tell you that I know him. And then so the person calls the secretary and the secretary is like, I've never heard of you. I don't know who you are. And then the stalker would say, oh, yeah, they're just saying that because they don't want people to know that we know each other. Like, that's how their mind is.
Huh.
But it was a
Delusional.
yeah, it was a very interesting article to read. And like I said, I will share that in the show notes because it's just insight to that. And now, these days we have better understanding of mental issues and things like that.
And better ways to stalk. Thanks,
Ah,
social media. We can stalk anyone from the comfort of our own house.
you know what really bothers me is like the women that have overcome domestic abuse and they're trying to get away. Like they would have to it's how can you not leave a trail these days?
I don't know. Stay off social media.
You would have to.
Yeah.
And that's why like, certain people like they get so upset or well, I shouldn't say certain people, but people they get so upset when they can't have certain records because like that because there's laws in place for things that happened like this.
Yeah. There's reason for
So,
it.
yeah. And it ultimately is for your protection.
Yeah.
And now, like, stalking victims in like a felony stalking case, the stalker can, or I'm sorry, the victim can obtain a restraining order that lasts up to 10 years. Now, again, I don't know if that's the case for Kentucky, and it may be different from state to state, but I think that's amazing.
I wonder what you need to get that though, because from personal experience, getting a no contact order was you had to have a lot of stuff to get a no contact order.
Whew.
You know what I mean? So I don't know what's involved in getting a restraining order, what kind of proof because I mean, I would hope that somebody can't just put a restraining order on anyone just because they feel like it. You know what I mean? Like there needs to be some kind of
Right.
like evidence, but just for when I had to get a no contact order on someone, I had so much documentation like in order to even have that. Like there was steps in place and I had everything I needed to get it, but it's like you can't just say you want it. So I don't know how that works either. So just if you feel like someone's stalking you or you're getting bad vibes from somebody, just like document everything, keep everything because you don't know when you'll need it.
I'm sure that like if you were to call your local like city government agency of some sort, that you could be put in contact with someone that would go over details of what you need to do, because some people are scared to call the police, like
Yeah.
directly call the police.
That's probably like your county attorney you go to, but I don't know.
Right, yeah. This story made me think of another story, um eh, that what was her name? I think her first name was Tracy Thurman. And she was stalked. Like her husband abused her and she separated from him and they had a son together. And he would stalk her and things like that. And, I want to say she did get a restraining order, but it was kind of like, what am I going to do with this piece of paper? This piece of paper does nothing. He can
It's
still
literally
kill me.
just a piece of paper. Yeah.
Right.
Right. It doesn't
So,
protect you.
yeah. And he ended up was it I think he stabbed her like
Yeah.
multiple times and he stomped her in the head.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah,
harsh.
and there was police present.
When it happened?
Yes, and I want to go more into detail in her story as well. I've already started researching about it because she fought and she won against the city or whatever, and she is a huge advocate for domestic violence even to this day.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in this world, especially like when COVID happens, those numbers
Hmm.
increased because people were, sheltered in place with their domestic partners.
I honestly never even thought about those kinds of situations.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. From my understanding, it was a bad time for domestic violence.
Wow. I mean, there's just so many bad things that happen, and I think we've said this before
Hmm.
that there's so many bad things that happen that it's not until after that bad thing happens that a law is made or procedures are put in place to prevent it from happening again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some
And that's
people
just
out there that's like
wrong.
fatal attraction scary. I mean,
Mhm.
I've seen it. So,
Well,
yeah.
and I mean, like, there's a difference between, because I mean, I think we all have obsessions. Like, I have went from obsessing about Sebastian Bach of Skid Row to obsessing about, and I was like, what, 10, to now at 43 obsessing about Rammstein. And I remember obsessing about Metallica, your favorite band in the whole world.
I'm obsessed with
And I
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
like, did you ever do scrapbooks and things like that?
I started a scrapbook. I had so much for my scrapbooking, right? Invested so much money in this hobby, like I do with every hobby. I got like 3 pages done and that's it.
But, the difference in that is it's a healthy one, right? Like, you don't, when you truly love someone, you don't want to make their life more miserable.
Or do you? I was kidding. No,
I want to make your life miserable, Nyoga.
I know.
I almost said your last name.
Which is, I'm sure, easy to find because I'm on social media.
Gonna get ya. That's that's really all I have about the story. Like, I don't know. Like, I
Yeah, that's
didn't
good.
want to make it too like, I don't know, whatever.
Stalkers are scary.
And let me just add for fun. is that this was another file pulled out of the my brain as a child, and also the one about Tracy Thurman.
What'd your mom do to you?
And I want to give a shout out to Ken. He's our newest fan. And he asked me if I got my DNA test. And I was like, what? Are we related? Like, I totally forgot all about it. So
That's nice.
that's me. I mean, I'll act like an airhead like every day. So like I just am sorry for not remembering exactly what you're talking about. Although I did after the fact. But welcome to Operation Evil.
Yes. We got a couple like new followers and stuff, so I'm like happy about that. Welcome to all.
Don't be stalking us.
Or go ahead. It's kind of flattering. No, just kidding. Don't be crazy. Don't be crazy. Anyway,
We're not making fun. Like that's not poking fun at like the seriousness of it. But
no. That's how we deal with like heavy issues. Well, that's how I
oh,
deal with heavy issues is to make jokes.
that's so. Yesterday, I had the surprise party for my child, and it was supposed to be a surprise party, but she wasn't very surprised. But I was talking to some of my relatives about what Nyoka and I do, our podcasts and stuff, and I was telling them about this one story. Though actually, Nyoka was the one that you just did about the murder that happened in Ohio,
Oh, yeah.
the man that killed his
That's
three
on the
kids.
Patreon, by the way. Go join.
Yeah, you have to listen to that episode. Even if you just sign up for Patreon, just to listen to that episode, just do it. And then you can unsubscribe or whatever. It's so good.
Thank
And I
you.
don't mean good like it's very heartfelt. Like anyhow, I was talking about that episode and I kind of like not chuckled, but like how we do, where I was like, and Gary was like, "Why are you laughing?" I'm like, "I'm not laughing. It's just like an awkward chuckle, like because that's how we deal with it."
Yeah, that is. And we're so used to doing that, we don't even think anything of it. And I think a lot of people that
Right.
do podcasts like this kind of do similar things too, because I don't know, it's heavy stuff. So
Yeah, like hey, like Bailey Sarian, I think she gets called out a lot for her jokes. And it's not that she's being disrespectful or anything, it's just that
that's just
after
how,
reading,
yeah,
yeah, after reading about these stories and stuff, it's like, can you imagine just going on about your day?
I know. I know. And that's just how I deal with a lot of things in life too, is like just making
Hmm.
stupid ass jokes. So it's fine.
Which I think most people do.
Yeah. But
Some
enough
just
about
don't want to
that.
admit it. We could go on and on about that. Oh, I also wanted to say, like, if anybody wants to watch that movie, um, that Rebecca was in, it's called Scenes from the Class Struggle in Beverly Hill. It's kind
Never
of
heard of
a
it, but my mom didn't put me in front of the Stalker TV. I'm just kidding.
so so yeah, if you want to watch anything that featured Rebecca Schaefer, just to see, her acting abilities, that movie and My Sister Sam and One Life to Live.
Yep. Ironic, isn't it? Never mind.
And that's
I
it.
made another bad joke and you didn't even catch on.
Oh, wait, what?
You said one
What you
life to
said?
live, and I said ironic, isn't it?
I swear to you, I was thinking something in my head, not exactly that, but that it was ironic that I swear
I believe you.
we do this all the time.
We do. All right. Thank you
Those chairs,
guys.
those chairs making noises.
Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you for staying with us. Bye.